Hello, and welcome back to Mr. B Teaches History. There are many underlying causes to the start of World War I, but since the U.S. did not play a part in its start, we will not address those here. Check out my lectures on world history to see those details. This lecture will focus on how the United States got involved in the war. So let's get started. The United States was neutral at the start of the war, but had strong economic ties with the allies of Great Britain and France. The U.S. was able to rebound from an economic recession in 1914 because of the orders for war supplies from these nations. Economic support really only went to one side because the United States tolerated the British blockade of Germany and the attacks of German submarines blockading Britain. This led to trade with the Allies quadrupling and trade with Germany dwindling to near nothing. The United States also allowed American banks to extend credit to the nations of France and Britain, which promoted U.S. prosperity and sustained the Allied war effort. Wilson tried to steer the United States in a path of neutrality during the war between the Allied and the Central Powers. This was in the tradition of American non-involvement in European wars as far back as President Washington and Jefferson. Britain, though, would seize American ships attempting to run the blockade to Germany, while President Wilson protested it as a violation of a neutral nation's freedom of the seas. Meanwhile, Germany warned that ships entering the war zone around the British Isle would be sunk by their submarines. This policy led to many passenger ships being sunk on the suspicion that they were carrying military aid. Germany and the United States went back and forth over the sinking of civilian ships during the war. Wilson even attempted and failed to make peace between the belligerent nations in 1915. Wilson and American citizens in general favored Great Britain because they perceived Germany as a cruel bully and were angered at the sinking of civilian ships. Most sympathies during the war reflected the ethnic and national ancestries of American citizens as they strongly identified with their homelands. Irish Americans hated the British, so they supported the Central Powers, and Italian Americans cheered on the Allies when Italy joined them by defending themselves from the Germans. This support was aided by British propaganda, influencing American newspapers and magazines. After the killing of Americans on civilian ships, some started to urge for war against Germany, but most were satisfied with the peace and prosperity of neutrality. Wilson also did not want to get in a war and supported an expansion of the armed forces to prepare for a possible war. There are many who opposed the expansion, fearing it would lead us to join the war. Wilson then won re-election in 1916 on the history of his neutrality and that he kept them out of the war when it started. A month before being sworn in for his second term, Wilson asked Congress for a declaration of war against Germany and the Central Powers. He did this for two reasons. First, Germany started attacking any ships with submarines, hoping to cut off American supplies to the Allies and to win the war before the United States could react. Wilson then cut off diplomatic relations with Germany as a result. The second most immediate reason was a diplomatic telegram from the German Foreign Minister Arthur Zimmermann to Mexico proposing an alliance that would provide Mexico with the territories taken during the 1848 and 1849 Mexican-American War. Mexico did not consider the offer, but it led to many to support going to war with the Central Powers. To protect against the German submarine warfare, the U.S. implemented a convoy system for merchant ships so that the British and French would not be starved into submission. The American Expeditionary Force was used to plug holes in the French and British lines at first, but then assumed independent responsibility for part of the Western Front. The United States military was able to hold the line against the last German offensive in the spring of 1918 and counterattacked in June of the same year that drove the exhausted German forces backwards. The counterattack was so successful that Germany agreed to an armistice or ceasefire to start on the 11th of November 1918, effectively ending the war. The United States only experienced 49,000 combat deaths, but many more from the flu epidemic during the war. Around a total of 20 million people died in the war, many civilians. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or clarifications you would like to make about this lecture, please leave a comment below. If you learned something new, please consider leaving a like. If you would like to receive notifications of more content like this, please consider subscribing and ringing the notification bell. If you would like to support this channel and creator financially, please check out the links in the description for merchandise or sites that will provide me direct financial support for the work of this channel. Thank you for your time and have a great day. Class dismissed.